listening to Over the Oxer podcast with Tracey Cole for all things to do with the mind for equestrians. So this week, I'm really delighted to welcome Nadia. Nadia Di-Luzio is a psychotherapist and coach, and she left a really successful corporate career of 28 years, where she was head of people, to focus on supporting individuals' mental and emotional well-being. Nadia has a range of qualifications. She's a psychotherapist, she's a counsellor, she's also an NLP practitioner, she's a timeline therapy practitioner, she's a hypnotherapist. So a very warm welcome, Nadia. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me on, Tracey.
Oh, so you've done loads professionally, and obviously we're going to talk about your riding and your horses as well. But just tell us a little bit, because you were in that corporate scenario for such a long time. Why did you leave, and why therapy?
So I actually only left my corporate career beginning of this year. 28 years in that corporate world, working for both small businesses and kind of large national global names. And we're coming up to almost 5 years to the day that all of us heard that message: stay home, stay safe. Lockdown came. And in an HR role, and I was in a standalone role, so it was just me, and at that point about 105 staff in the business I worked in. And the role kind of changed overnight from what you would traditionally maybe expect or understand someone in HR to do, to getting calls from people who were isolating at home alone, loneliness, anxious about the messaging we were hearing, all those different kind of things. And actually, about 6 months before that, I kind of started volunteering and exploring volunteering opportunities, and decided I quite liked the idea of finding out a bit more about how to support people, and had started volunteering with a mental health charity called Shout, who back in 2019, I think they were the UK's first text-based mental health app. So all of us volunteers were trained to just be able to support people via text. And I found that really, really fascinating. So when my role and what people were coming to me for changed in that kind of, well, overnight, we went from kind of freedom and doing all our usual day-to-day things to suddenly I remember just watching the news at 5 o'clock every day, because that's what time we were all getting messages.
Yeah.
I just wondered, how do I kind of expand my knowledge, experience to support this group in a way that they're now asking me to support them? And actually, it was one of the supervisors at Shout that said to me, you can train, retrain, try something different. Because I think I had understanding and expectation that this work was kind of doctoral in nature. I had left school at 16 and started my career as an apprentice. So I'd done everything on the job. I wasn't someone who went on to college or university. So I don't think I really kind of knew or had much understanding of what was out there in terms of being a mature. I was just hit my 40s. I had no real understanding that these were options for me.
Yeah.
And they said to me, find your local college, see if they do a very introductory course, start at the beginning and just see how far you go, see how much you enjoy it, see. And that was, lockdown changed my perspective, my career. I finished training and graduated last June. I can't believe I'm nearly at a year post kind of 5 years of counselling and psychotherapy training, but it has had an immense impact on me personally, and the privilege of working with people in all levels of their journeys, some coming for that kind of forward-looking, solution-focused kind of counselling, and others who you are sitting with in real distress. And that's been a real privilege. So for me, I, at the back end of last year, was able to transition out of that corporate world and have started private practice. I started then also expanding my knowledge and started training with you last September. because I'd actually spent a day at a conference with a lady called Dr. Janina Fisher, who is in her 70s now, I think, and she left me with a really, like, something that stuck in my mind. And she said throughout, if she could leave us all with one thing, it's not to just train and focus in one area, but keep developing your skills. If you're interested in, semantics and body work, go on, try it, experience it. You might be able to integrate one thing that helps somebody. And I was thinking, actually, and we'll come on to the mindset piece in my own riding journey, but I've been supported in that way from the kind of mindset work, and NLP really spoke to me, and it still does. But there was a point in time that really spoke to me more than my own therapy journey. And so
Yeah.
I think it's about having the right tools and skills because we're all individual.
Yeah.
And I think what I love now is being able to blend the two so that,
Yeah.
wherever we are on that journey, as part of my work, we can kind of go in either direction. And also some of the techniques from NLP, I find, so I work with young people as well. So I work with 16 upwards. I don't work with younger children or younger people. Sometimes, yeah, the kind of some of those mindset techniques and just getting to understand that we don't have to have black and white thinking all the time. Some of those can be really, really beneficial. So that lady's kind of parting thoughts really stuck with me that actually,
Yeah.
yeah, it's never going to be a one size fits all. I might do some of this training and never integrate it, and other things I might think, actually, I've got a client where that will really feels like that could really
Yeah.
be what will make the shift for them.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what's really special about your practice is because you've got a range of tools from mindset, like you say,
Mm.
people who just want to enhance what they've got, through to people who are in absolute dire
Mm.
straits. And you don't, like you say, use a one size fits all. You can pull things from all different areas of psychology and NLP and psychotherapy to blend it even for one client, not necessarily for a range of clients as well.
Mm.
That's really powerful,
Absolutely.
isn't it? So, what would you say is the difference between something like counselling and, say, therapy? Just so people have got a bit more of an idea.
I think sometimes it's as simple as the entry point, kind of
Okay.
where are you in that moment?
Yeah.
And just to give people a very brief, to me, counselling and psychotherapy, the words are used interchangeably,
Yeah.
but how I view it myself is counselling is more shorter term work.
Yeah.
So, you might think about it in the context that your work might provide you with access to like an EAP. Typically, they might give you 6 to 12 sessions.
Yeah.
And in that, will obviously the work's boundaried anyway, but it will be boundaried around what actually can we achieve in this period? What would maybe be one or two things you would like to work on?
Mm.
Whereas psychotherapy can be much longer term work,
Yeah. Yeah.
potentially much deeper work, depending on where somebody wants to go. And for me, the core of my training is relational. So it's about our relationship, our therapeutic relationship, and allowing someone to really be seen and heard. Because I think that's also sometimes the difference. If I then think about the difference between that and coaching,
Yeah.
you sometimes hear people saying, I don't need to hear your story because I can just fix this bit. And actually,
Mm.
that can be extremely minimizing to somebody who
Yeah.
has not had a voice.
Yeah.
If we think about people that have been in abusive situations,
Yeah.
and some of the young people I work with, and I do that work in a specific charity setting, but I also will do this work in my private practice if I have anyone looking for that for their younger people. But they have been the victims of crime. And that crime can also include bullying because that's seen on a spectrum and that's funded by Thames Valley Police. So they fund this particular work in a charity I do. And if you think they haven't had their voice in some of those situations, and actually some of those people come to me as adults, so not through that service, but as adults now who, as a child, were impacted by these things. So for them to have someone saying, I don't need to know your story,
Yeah.
that can be very, very minimizing. So I think it's about where you are at that moment as to what might be best for you. And
Yeah.
that's for you to decide, I think. I
Yeah.
think sometimes people come for coaching because actually they're like, oh, I've identified where I am and I really want to kind of be future focused, have some goals to work on and kind of look at it that way. So they might
Yeah.
be in a different place already. So
Yeah.
I think it's the entry point and how you're feeling at that moment. And that's not to say you might not transition from one to the other. I have a couple of clients that have been with me through my training and have stayed with me as I graduated and are still with me because they've moved into that personal development space.
Oh, brilliant. So they started
Mm,
off in therapy.
yeah, started off in
Yeah.
therapy. And I guess, yeah, but some people it's a real personal journey.
Yeah.
And the length of time is not dictated by your therapist. It's by
Yeah.
you and where you are.
Yeah.
Likewise, for me, it's not dictated as to how you would prefer. I also have some clients for whom the word counselling or therapy sadly still has a stigma around it. So
Yeah.
being able to say they come for coaching, even if in our room we know we transition, because for me that's we have to be honest about that, know where we're working, what we're working
Yeah.
on, just to offer them that I guess that other term for what they're seeking.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's quite personal as well, I've found, as to how they feel about saying therapy or saying counselling
Yeah.
versus actually I'm being coached. To me they mean different things, but actually I'm not a lover of labels either. So
Yeah.
if one doesn't resonate with you, that's okay by me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You're coming for help in some way. And
Absolutely.
what this is a hard question, but I'm always intrigued by people's answers. So, what does mindset mean for you?
I think for me it's that flexibility to know we can make choices.
Hmm. Oh, I love that.
That
Yeah.
I have choice, even if at given moments the two choices I have aren't great,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I still have an option, because I think when we feel stuck, and stuck can mean different things again, depending where you are on that kind of therapeutic journey or coaching, because one could be stuck in career, if I think about my background, career,
Yeah.
and career focused, or stuck in the riding context could be, you know, and in my own background, I had a moment where I couldn't get off the mounting block. So stuck was physical as well, because it can, the mind body link we know is huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas in counselling therapy world, that stuck could be trapped, could be
Yeah.
domestic abuse, feeling like I have no choice. So mindset for me is, even though the choices might both not be great,
Yeah.
just knowing we have them and we can know that flexibility of mind is,
Yeah.
I think it's really crucial to our emotional health as well,
Yeah.
to
I agree.
know that I can make some choices here and I can also then make another one if that one isn't right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
that
incredibly empowering, isn't it?
mm,
And like you say, if your choices, you got two choices, so that's pretty narrow as it is.
yeah.
Both a bit rubbish, then that's still not great, but it's better than having one choice and having that tunnel vision and that stuckness. It's
Mm,
slightly more expansive, but
mm.
yeah, that's really powerful. I like your definition of mindset. That's super. So you mentioned riding. So tell us about your horsey journey.
So my horsey journey started with my dad, who had a cart horse when he lived in his little mountain village in Italy. And he used to share pictures of George, his cart horse, with us growing up. And then I think I was about 8 or 9 and I got my first riding lesson for a birthday. And then when I was about 14, I think I got my first pony on, like a share.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I fell in love with it. And I think my parents thought, oh, great, good for them to have a hobby. It was outdoor.
Mhm.
It was, at that point, I lived in London. So they used to take me out to Kent one Sunday a week. And obviously, there's only one Sunday in the week, but one day a week. And we would yeah, do some outdoors stuff together. It was lovely, and I'd look after this pony on my pony day, and
Yeah.
fell in love with it from there. And at the moment, I've got two veterans. So I've got Ralph, who is on loan to me, and he's been with me since he was 18. He will have his 22nd birthday in a few weeks.
Oh,
And I absolutely spoilt with him. So he was a Horse of the Year show pony. He was professionally produced for his whole career. And his mum was just looking for someone to enjoy him. She said he was still full of life. He didn't want to retire.
yeah.
And about 3 years ago, so just before he came to me, I also lost my hearing. So when we started looking for another horse for me, it needed to be something that would not be reactive, because once you've got a riding hat on and say you're out for a hack, and if you can imagine, like,
Yeah.
it's cold and say the wind picks up, I can't hear what's going on behind me, because even with hearing aids, once you've got a hat on, you think about your jacket over the top and
Yeah. Yeah.
your ears, so we needed something, and I couldn't find anything. And I happened to ring his mum. I have known just in passing on the show circuit 4 years. I would just watch him since he was 4 years old
Oh,
and say hello to her. And I thought, I can't find anything. I knew she was on the other side of the country, rang her one day and said, do you know anything in your area? Because I can't find anything in Surrey.
yeah.
I'm stuck with, and she was like, would you like him? And she dropped him off about 2 weeks later.
Oh, wow. Oh, meant to be.
And it was just meant to be. And he is phenomenal, and he does not react to anything. So I can go to clinics. If someone falls off behind me or their horse, I'm still trotting along.
Yeah.
I haven't got a clue, because he doesn't react in that way.
Lovely.
And he's also taken me to some huge things. Once I'd got to know him, she said, if you'd like to take him out to a couple of things and just have some fun, because he knows his job. So last year he took me around the New Forest show, and we did a Horse of the Year show qualifier, which I would never have had the confidence to do before. And I set off for that gallop up the New Forest, knowing that I was going to have breaks at the end
Yeah.
and a smile on my face.
Yeah.
And that's lovely, because I've had moments through my riding journey where I've completely lost my confidence, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, and couldn't get off the mounting block. And so the kind of mindset piece really helped me at that time to actually understand what was going on for me.
Mm. Yeah.
How had I got so stuck it had become physical, and that fear had embodied me physically, that I couldn't move, I couldn't get on, and yet I loved horse riding.
Yeah. So did you get over it by using the psychotherapy and counselling tools that you were learning, or was it Ralph that helped you through it, or a bit of both?
No, it was before. So
Oh,
I had
okay.
I had my other horse dude, he was 5 then. So we had bought me a lovely pony that actually he had been found for me to make sure that he was going to help restore my confidence. I had lost my dad about a
Bless you.
year before that, and it came out in my riding.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And I think at the time I had not made the link,
Yeah.
but with a bit of work between actually some therapy at that time, because I think what I'd done was just suppress the emotions, and I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
and I just functioned. And I remember I think my career was, it was at a point where it was really thriving, and you didn't
Mm.
want that to, I do a lot of work with people now whose career and their identity is so linked to that. And I would say I was at a point where mine was, I kind of felt I was only good enough if I was doing all these things, and people perceived me to be like, I guess we learn, or certainly as I grew up, those societal, you must do this at this age, this,
Yeah.
keep working, keep working. That was really in my psyche. And at the point I was losing my dad, I think I actually threw myself even more into work.
Yeah.
And so I buried down all those other emotions and grief and loss, and that it came out. I would say within a few months, I couldn't get off that mountain block. I was at a dressage competition,
Yeah.
and this couple came over, asked if they, because I was on the mounting block, obviously there's everyone
Yeah.
else. And I remember it, but we've never found the people again. Snowball Farm, which is in Slough. And they came over and asked if they could, would you like us to take the pony? And so that you can just have a moment, because I'd been there about 20 minutes.
Oh
And
God.
then they did. And when I was feeling able to come back down, and I went and said thank you. And they said to me, there are people that can help with this, and suggested I find a kind of like mindset coach, sports psychologist, that type of
Yeah.
thing. So I never, because I in that moment I wasn't in the space to kind of. I hope I said thank you, but and you think actually
Mm,
I couldn't even describe what they looked like to you because I was so
yeah.
in a different space. And then I went and got that kind of support for myself, and it's huge to know that there's different types of help based on where you are and what type of things are coming forward for you, and that always stuck with me as well. So I really enjoyed doing my own NLP training with you because it's looking at things from a different perspective, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So when you think about riders, then are riders welcome to come to you with mindset issues as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because it's not deep therapy that they might need if they just need to get over getting into canter or getting on the off the
Yeah.
mountain block.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's either piece of work, fine.
Yeah.
We might find we transition through both, or we might stay solely focused in the mindset space. And more than happy to start working with riders. And I guess my journey into the sports kind of psychology piece. So my brothers were Olympians.
Wow.
So from when we were children, they went on a journey. And I think that's the first, I was trying to think before I came on, my first kind of knowing of sports psychology or any kind of mindset work. So if we're in our late 40s now, they left school and went that kind of career route at 12. And they used to have tapes in the car. So, the old fashioned cassette tapes
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
car when we were going on anything. Very different to how we would practice this now. But they literally were tapes that would say, no one can beat you. You're the best. When you're out there, you're really focused. Nothing else matters. It's just you. And they were rowers. It's just you on the water. No one's coming past you. They would listen to all this. And I remember just thinking, that's going to help them win. Because when you're a child, I think I was 12 or 13. They were between 10 and 12.
Yeah.
But there's gold and silver medal in the family, world
Brilliant.
titles in last year's Olympic female rowing athletes. Some of them came from one of my brothers as a coach. So that mindset piece has been, whilst not my own journey,
Yeah.
I've watched that from the side and just how that has helped build their resilience. Now, those medals and things didn't come without huge setbacks. The first Olympics one went to, they came last.
Oh
And out of everyone else that was rowing that year, over half of them never returned to that sport.
gosh.
Whereas my brother went, this is what I want. I've had a taste of this now.
Yeah.
What have I learned?
Oh wow.
And that failure is feedback.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those really important messages. And I guess I've embodied some of that into my writing as well, because, I have always wished to get to Horse of the Year show.
Yeah.
But there's an element of having to have the right horse, which comes with funding. I also had a career. This wasn't my full-time job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? I've learned that actually for me, it's nice to have that dream, because
Yeah.
it felt like when I was going out there and going in the ring and having those brilliant experiences, that, there's something about that. Could it be? That's
Yeah.
really powerful, but also knowing that for me, I'm sat up there against other people with incredible horses, also doing this as a full-time job.
Yeah.
And if I'm just doing the best I can on the day,
Yeah.
brilliant. And I get so much pleasure now if Ralph is known, he's well known. because he was out there on the circuit. When his old producer came over to me last year and said, how brilliant to watch him taking you round. And
Oh,
that almost checked, because as she
yeah.
said to me, if I'm at something this year, can I sit on him again? And
Yeah.
you just think, to have someone that had done that and had him at his pinnacle say to you that just looked brilliant. See you two having such fun. That for me was the same. That was my winning
Yeah.
moment. And
Yeah.
I think so my mindset shifted, but I'm sure they're still in the back of my mind. Wouldn't that be nice? But
Yeah.
it it's because I think it's nice to have those kind of hopes and dreams as well.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely something to aim for, but not be too attached to it.
Yes.
It's not your profession. You're not a professional
No,
rider.
and also I'm riding a much older horse now. In fact, we're not doing any qualifiers this year. We just did that one last year because actually I wanted to ride at something quite big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I went to it with a different mindset, a mindset of, and I had all the lessons to help me. So I'd know how to be in the ring, what to do for that gallop if I felt this is quite overwhelming. There's a lot of eyes on you. I also kind of thought to myself, gosh, that his old producer will be there.
Yeah.
But do you know what? That was my journey. That was my ride. And just getting myself into that kind of mindset really helped.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, I suppose you had a fun mindset more than anything.
Yes.
It,
Mm,
it was it was all to enjoy. It didn't matter about the results. It was
mm.
just all to play for, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I
I think sometimes as riders, we put ourselves under so much pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say to somebody who came to you knowing that they put themselves under undue pressure, let's say? Maybe they're a perfectionist, or maybe it's just that they have high expectations of themselves, and maybe those expectations can be realized at some future date,
Mm.
but they're feeling that pressure of having to perform or having to get the results or having to qualify. How would you help somebody like that? What do your first steps be?
I think for me, it's understanding, where's that pressure coming from?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that from you? Is that external? And
Mhm.
what's it giving us? Because there's also that kind of secondary gain, isn't there?
Mm.
Or sometimes that people don't realize what are we getting from putting ourselves under that? Because there'll be something in there keeping us in that pattern
Yeah.
of doing this.
Yeah.
So what are we getting from that?
Yeah.
And seeing if we could just unpick that and loosen,
Yeah.
make our mindset a little bit more flexible around
Yeah.
actually, what is it you really want? Because is it to always have those feelings of not good enough that
Yeah.
we're maybe giving ourselves by giving ourselves that pressure?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
what
think
would it be like to feel something a little bit different?
I think so many riders, and this is in the professional realm as well as amateurs and
Mm,
recreational riders, do put themselves under so much pressure. I think it's so common that
mm,
actually it takes all the joy out of the riding. The riding becomes more functional,
mm.
and we lose so much in that kind of mindset. For me, that's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of, what are we doing it for as well? I'd love, what is their why? You know,
Yeah.
because yeah, it is lovely to go out and get a frilly every now and then.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say, oh, I'm bringing home the best horse, but actually we are, because otherwise, why do we have them?
Yeah. 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 They're a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of money.
Absolutely. And this winter's been hard.
Yeah.
I think each winter's been hard. As I get older, I find them a little bit harder,
Yeah.
you
It's
know?
a little bit longer, a little bit worse.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's something that keeps us that why. So sometimes it's about tapping back into that. What am I actually doing this for?
Yeah, definitely,
Mm.
definitely. I think you've probably encapsulated my next question, to be honest. But I'm interested to know if you've got anything else to say, and that is, what would be your quick mindset tip for riders? It can be about anything. I mean, you've already given us some tips about
Yeah.
the pressure, and but is there anything else that you would tell somebody to do or to think or to have a go at? They could do really quickly. Put you on the
Mm.
spot now.
Yeah. I think probably it does link. Just remind yourself of why you do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
And
it's not for anyone else, it's for ourselves. So why
yeah.
are you doing it?
Yeah. And I was talking to a group of riders the other day about their why, specifically, what you're saying. And they came up with some kind of superficial answers, like I do it because I like horses, or this kind of thing. I do it because I enjoy riding. I do it because I get in the fresh air. And I said, but what if there's something underneath that? And so I kept saying to them, for what purpose? For what? And I wouldn't let them go. It was like a dog with a bone. For what purpose? What purpose? And we came out with some really deep whys, like it brings me peace. It brings me inner peace and things like that. And I thought, now that's your why. And it was really interesting. So I think you can do that. You can keep saying, what is my why and for what purpose, until you find something that really is in your soul almost.
My other horse dude, he is retired. He had an accident in 2019. So he's a lot younger than Ralph, and lots of people ask me why I kept him. Well, he is the horse that I couldn't get on that day. He rebuilt my confidence. We have a connection I can't really explain.
Yeah.
And he brings me, I mean, horses can be your mirror as well. I don't work with them in therapy, but it's something I'm interested in kind of doing later on. He really reflects my emotions.
Yeah.
If I was anxious, he actually wouldn't let me on. He wouldn't stand at the mountain block. And if I was confident, he would let me on.
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating, that kind of why do I keep him? Why didn't I let him go? Why did we rehab him? It's because there's some kind of soul connection there for sure. That my why there is about the connection and the bond we have. And he brings me kind of mental peace, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. They're great animals, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how's the future looking for you? What have you got coming up?
So I have a private practice. So I see people both in person in Chobham, in Guildford, and I'm also walk and talk trained. So I do walk and talk on the 100-acre farm that my horses are on. So it's a nice private woodland space. And I also see people online across the UK. So I do currently have a couple of spaces on a Tuesday morning and a rare evening, because I do a lot with people that I guess are working,
Yeah.
so I've got a couple of evening spaces coming up. So yeah, future looks like
Busy.
busy, but good, and
Yeah.
hopefully space in there to continue learning and growing myself as well.
Oh, fantastic. And where can we find you online? What's your website? Where can we find you on socials?
So the website is The Mindful Business Company. On socials, I'm at The Mindful Business Company. And if you want to follow the horses, they are at A Tale of Two Veterans.
Oh, lovely. Lovely. I'll put that down in the description box for everybody. Thank you so much. That has been so fascinating to learn more about you and more about your horses and your journey. Thank you ever so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me on.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.